From the Cyber Hub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the Cyber Hub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the Cyber Hub podcast. We're live Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Good morning, everyone tuning in on your favorite social media platforms and podcast listening platforms. Please make sure to subscribe, follow, share. Lots of content we spew out every single day to all of y'all. Thanks so much for a lot of the feedback. Also, some of the stories today brought to you by our very own viewers. People who tune into the show who go, James, I don't know if you've seen this or not. I don't know if this is something you want to talk about. We do the research. We come back. We go, absolutely. And you're brilliant. Thank you for being so smart. We have the best audience on the planet. Now, without further ado, obviously on the road. I'll be back in the studio tomorrow, I hope, right? Like air travel today, unpredictable. But nonetheless, coffee cup cheers, y'all. My travel espresso mug, courtesy of the Cyber Hub podcast. You can get that by going to our Substack, jamesazar.substack.com. You subscribe, and we send you one of these with a whole bunch of more stuff as part of your support to our show. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Good espresso, like surprisingly good espresso, right? Surprisingly good espresso. Y'all know how hard it is to get good coffee on the show. Let's go ahead and get going here with the luxury retailer Neiman Marcus saying they were also one of the victims of the Snowflake breach. And now we're attributing this breach to Snowflake, and it's really not Snowflake, right? It's a Neiman Marcus breach that happened at a Snowflake environment. Snowflake was the destination. Neiman Marcus was the victim. And Snowflake was never compromised, meaning they didn't get into the account because they compromised Snowflake. They compromised Neiman Marcus's Snowflake account. Two very, very different things. Not the same. According to the regulatory filing in Maine and Vermont this week, it said that names, contact information, date of birth, Neiman Marcus and Bergdorf Goodman gift card numbers were accessed by the attackers. A spokesperson has confirmed to Recorded Future News that the unauthorized party gained access through a platform provided by third-party Snowflake. Promptly upon discovering this, they obviously went through to contain it. The filing in Maine says 64,472 people were affected by the incident. Identity theft protection services were not offered to these victims, primarily because no social security number was compromised there. So it doesn't exist, right? No ID numbers. It's really, your gift card number, your date of birth, and your contact information. And again, this is a very interesting twist in the turn of things here, right? A lot of companies will automatically, once they go through an incident, say, we're going to give you identity theft protection, right? We're going to give that to you. But what we're starting to see is insurance providers going, not so much. Is it required? Would the law require it? Would regulators require it? Was the data stolen sufficient to provide that service, or are we just overdoing it? A very, very interesting twist here if you've missed it, because they're not offering identity protection at all, because they don't feel like the data compromised justifies that. And now we get into a debate. What justifies identity theft protection? Is 1 year good enough, or 2 years good enough? Because we know this data goes on sale on the dark web, and it doesn't get used immediately. It can sit dormant. They can collect more data. They can wait for an opportune time to strike, all of which matters here. For those of you in virtual reality headsets, right? Like super, super cool. If you haven't done one of those, like it's pretty awesome, right? Well, spatial computing attacks that target VR headsets are rare, but however, the first ever hack against Apple's Vision Pro only became public just earlier this month. Now, another researcher demonstrated a method of delivering any malware to Meta's Quest 3 headset. Researchers Harish, and I'm going to butcher his name. I don't want to do that. I was practicing it before the show. I'm going to butcher it anyways. Harish, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize. Harish Gansanan took a claim on Reddit that it's almost impossible to install malware on Quest 3 VR as a personal challenge. To explore emerging threat surfaces, he decided to do so without enabling developer mode. Simply Googling told him Meta was using a restricted version of Android open source project. It means I can install any APK just like installing apps in your Android phone. According to him, more Googling, time on YouTube, unearthed a methodology using an app from Meta's App Lab, which gives access to native Android file manager. He used this to install CovidLock ransomware on his headset. Good for you, man. Good for you. This is why this is the best industry on the planet. You know, this in medicine. But you can find people that just go like, oh, you say you can't? I double dog dare you. Here we go. I'm going to show you it's doable. Never say something is unhackable. Just don't do it. Just stop. CovidLock's a ransomware that targets Android devices. It masquerades as a COVID-19 tracker app, uses permission creep to gain additional permissions. If it gets enough, it locks out the user out of the device and displays a ransom note. However, the malware installed by the researcher is irrelevant. The process he discovered could deliver any malware via social engineering. The research is not about a vulnerability in MetaQuest 3, rather about an attack surface which allows people to sideload malware without developer options. And yeah, he hasn't published all the technical details yet, but nonetheless, anyone on VR? Anyone? Here we go. Turkey's biggest cryptocurrency exchange, also known as BTC Turk, said in an announcement over the weekend that their exchange was hacked and nearly 51 million euros worth of crypto, Bitcoin, were stolen. The teams detected a cyber attack on the platform on June 22nd, which caused uncontrolled withdrawals to be processed. Only some of the balances in the hot wallets of 10 cryptocurrencies were affected by the attack in questions, and cold wallets were, and most of those assets were kept safe. Yeah, cold, hot, online, offline makes a difference. So BTC Turk's financial strength is well above the amount impacted by the attack. It's not about that. I mean, I was looking through a Telegram channel yesterday and I was seeing like 4 or 5 different crypto exchanges getting attacked. 51 million euros here, 27 million over there, 32 million. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that really, really drains wealth from the middle class. And while you might be able to pay it back, and you say we can withstand it, the process and the faith of the people who invest, who want to deal in crypto, decreases severely. And governments don't know how to react to crypto. They don't know how to regulate crypto. And by all means, crypto is associated with threat actors in most cases. And so what you're getting here is a really significant transfer of wealth in a place where very few governments, very few legal entities can even try to defend. So BTC Turk, the latest victim. Moving on to vulnerabilities today, where security researchers are warning of a web supply chain attack that impacts over 100,000 websites using the Polyfill CDN domain. The polyfill.io website is used to host a service for adding JavaScript polyfills to sites. Those are small bits of code that provide modern functionality in older browsers and ensure compatibility with a broader range of browser. In February of this year, the domain and associated GitHub account were taken over by a Chinese CDN company called Funnel, which sparked concerns of such supply chain attacks being carried out via Polyfill. These concerns proved substantiated recently when websites owners using Polyfill started noticing the abnormal behavior and complaining about it. On Tuesday, security researchers at Sensec and Seaside confirmed that the cdn.polyfill.io domain is injecting malicious code into more than 100,000 websites that are using it. The Polyfill code is dynamically generated based on HTTP headers, so multiple attack vectors are likely. It's generating payloads based on these headers, activating only on specific mobile device, evading detection, avoiding admin users, and delaying execution. The code is also obfuscated. Users are being redirected to sports betting websites or adult domains, likely based on their location. But this being JavaScript could at any moment introduce new attacks like form jacking, click jacking, or broader data theft. The Polyfill service appears to remain functional and clean, but the domain should immediately be removed from any website, according to the company. Yes, #true. Get it removed. Find a different way to manage it. Cloudflare is announcing their availability, of course, to go if you want to, kind of go off Polyfill. But that's something to keep in mind, by the way, as security practitioners. I'll tell you why. A quick story here, 30 seconds. Sitting yesterday with a friend of mine from the great country of Israel. We're having coffee in the Big Apple And we're talking about food security going on right now, right? Globally, right? Just generally, you look at people in the Ukraine, Israel, a lot of countries that are at war that could face potential sanctions, isolation, Russia, and so forth. They're critically concerned about their food supplies, and government are going like, all right, food supply, local manufacturing. How do we boost it? How do we make sure that there's eggs on the shelves, milk on the shelves, that there's bread, all the things that you need in order to keep a population not hungry and thus leading to anarchy. And if you've never been to Israel, there's a huge dairy manufacturer called Tnuva. And Tnuva was built out of a kibbutz, and that's a different history for a different day. Well, years ago, Tnuva was sold to the Chinese, and the tech was sold to the Chinese, and then the Chinese are holding that tech almost as hostage. Lesson learned. Kind of reading this story today with that story, 2 and 2 equals 4, right? When a product you use is being sold and the new owners are potentially from a hostile nation state that could use that to manipulate your company, raise a red flag. Use this example. Use the Tnuva example as one. Look those up. You can use Google, talk all about it. So, articles written about it everywhere, right? Make sure you address that. Make sure you understand and make sure you have alternatives. That's really important. A lot of polyfill folks are going to be leaving the company in the coming months. Another Zixel critical severity vulnerability in their discontinued NOS devices is already being exploited in botnet attacks. This is CVE 2024-29973. It's a code injection flaw that could be exploited remotely without authentication. It was introduced last year when they patched a similar code. That's CVE 2023-2799902, a similar code injection bug. According to researchers, an attacker can send a crafted HTTP post request to a vulnerable device to exploit the vulnerability for remote code execution. Shadow Server Foundation revealed that it started seeing the first exploitation attempts targeting the vulnerability by a Mirai-like botnet. Technicals and proof of concepts are now publicly available. Zixel has patched these devices, but you want to make sure you get them done as soon as humanly possible. Several vulnerabilities patched recently by Siemens and some of their SciCam products could be exploited in attacks aimed at the energy sector. These updates were released in May at the SciCam A8000 remote terminal unit, and the SciCam EGS grid sensors and power automation software addresses 2 severity, 1 medium severity flaws. One of the security holes, CVE 2024-31484, is a buffer overread issue that could be exploited to read sensitive data from memory. It could also lead to a denial of service condition. The second vulnerability, CVE 2024-31485, is a command injection issue in the product's web interface. It could allow an attacker to intercept username and passwords of users with elevated privileges, enabling them to execute arbitrary code. Multi-factor authentication. Really, really important. And the final one, CVE 2024-31486, is related to the MQTT client passwords being improperly protected, allowing an attacker as physical or remote shell access to obtain those credentials. Multi-factor authentication helps build resiliency. All right, a team of researchers from the Graz University of Technology in Austria have disclosed details of a new attack method that would allow a remote attacker to infer websites and other content viewers by not needing direct access to their traffic. This is a person in the middle type of attack, or hacking the target's Wi-Fi connection from physical proximity, similar to those the new side channel attack method discovered by the TU Graz researchers named Snail Load is more efficient as it does not require a person in the middle position, JavaScript, or any other code execution, but rather just access to the victim's systems. The researchers demonstrated the attack by showing how they could deduce YouTube videos and websites accessed by the users. In order to launch the attack, the attackers conducted a series of latency measurements for various YouTube videos and websites that the victim may be viewing. This data provided a latency trace that includes specific variations over time for each targeted video or website. They essentially created a fingerprint of those. The attackers then need to get to the targeted user to load data from a malicious servers. They can convince them to download a file or anything like that, especially when they know it makes social engineering much, much easier. Speeding through here, folks, because we are almost out of time. Threat actors with suspected ties to China and North Korea are being linked to ransomware and data encryption attacks targeting government and critical infrastructure sectors across the world between 2021 and 2023. The cluster associated is being nicknamed Camel or Chamel Gang. Sorry, not Camel, Chamel Gang. The second cluster overlaps with activity previously attributed to China and North Korea. Sentinel-1 and Recorded Future said in a joint report shared with the team over at the Hacker News. This includes Chamel Gang's attack aimed at all India Institute of Medicine Sciences and the presidency of Brazil in 2022 using the Cat B ransomware, as well as targeting government entities in East Asia and the aviation organizations in the Indian subcontinent. So something really interesting to read about. We'll try to get more of the story hopefully tomorrow in the show. Poland, for their end, woke up on May 31st of this year with an unusual message on one of the Polish press agency websites saying that they're announcing a partial mobilization, calling up people to serve in the armed forces. And that was ordered to begin by Prime Minister Donald Tusk beginning July 1st. That was obviously fake. It's false. There's no such thing. And it was essentially a Russian misinformation, disinformation campaign. Well, Poland, after that, announced an increase of cybersecurity spending to $760 million to improve digital security, including addressing misinformation and disinformation and building a standard that would be carried out across Poland. A really interesting use case. A man was arrested over a honey trap WhatsApp messages sent to various British politicians in what is looking like a sex scandal from Grindr that led to blackmail, that led to MPs' phone numbers being given out, to WhatsApp messages with explicit pictures. Phishing and social engineering, folks. There's something there to be made and talked about it. The FBI is warning that cyber criminals are posing as law firms and lawyers, and they're offering cryptocurrency recovery services to victims of investment scams and stealing funds and personal information. This is a similar alert to the internet, to the agency's IC3 that alerted to an increase of scam involving fake services for recovering digital assets from those victims. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, right here live with all the latest and greatest. You can always make sure to subscribe, share. If you've got any stories, you can always drop them to us on LinkedIn, X, or anywhere else. Till then, great rest of your day, and most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.